Welcome to the New Dentist Study Club podcast. My name is Dr. Sanj Mohanta. We're going to learn about clinical management, practice management, and the emotional management of dentistry. Let's learn how to be happier in dentistry. Let's go. Hello, friends. Thank you so much for joining this special episode with Dr. Mark Lin, prosthodontist, who's going to be talking about career strategy. So by the end of this episode, you'll definitely look at your career differently and make some strategic directions so that you can have fulfillment and you can have the career you want. So, Mark, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Mark, you're a prosthodontist. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I think it's important to kind of give you a little bit of background in history. So I graduated dental school in 1993 and did a one-year GPR general practice residency from 1993 to 1994 in a hospital based. And then I actually practiced as a general practitioner for 13 years and then returned back to postgraduate studies at University of Toronto from 2006 to 2009. And then soon after that, I was offered an assistant professor part-time position for about the duration of 4 years, pretty much 2, 3 years after I graduated. And all that time, from that point on to now, I'm a full-time prosthodontist for about 16 years. So I think based on the 30 plus years, I've been in different aspects. And so I have an insight, obviously, as a clinician and part-time academic and being a general dentist, that I think I would like to kind of, say to the audience, knowing what I know today, if I saw myself back in 1993 when I graduated as a fresh dental student, or at least early in my career, what would I say to myself, or what advice would I give to myself in 1993 and say, now you just graduated, great, congratulations. What exactly are the career strategies that are available to us, and of course the pros and cons of each avenue or career path you may take.
Thank you, Mark. This is so important to have like Mark, like audience, you have Mark's wisdom. Like, look, he was a general dentist, is GPR associated, specialized, got, this fantastic position in academia at the University of Toronto. He's the prosthodontist, practice owner. He also left out that he started Tide, which is his own educational facility in Toronto. And Mark's the type of guy who does live implant surgeries at the Ontario Dental Association's annual spring meeting on stage in front of all of his peers. Like, Mark is like at the top of his game. So we are so lucky to have an all-star like Mark, who's had a fantastic career, guide us on our career. So thank you, Mark.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind. Doing live surgeries is a different scenario, right? It's out of your office element,
Mhm.
as that's not a dental office, so it's a makeshift podium. And of course, when it's the camera blown up at 300 times and everyone's watching every movement you make, certainly it makes you up your game, and it's a
Yes.
challenge, and certainly it's a fun experience, to be quite honest. And of course, for participants to visualize and have some direct Q&A with our other specialist mentors and moderators. It was a very, very good experience. Last year we did it, the year before we did it. I think in the near future we'll do other programs on live stage. And I'm thankful for that opportunity, and I'm honored to be able to provide live patient treatments.
We're thankful to you, Mark. So for those of you in Toronto, like check out Tide, check out Mark whenever he speaks at conferences. He'll definitely be back at the Ontario Dental Association's conference each May. So Peter Barry is the one who introduced us. He's a friend of both of ours, and he's a practice management consultant. He's like a coach to all of us. And there's something he said on when we did a podcast together that reminds me of what we're doing today. And he said, a lot of dentists are just floating. They just say to themselves, okay, I need to work 4 or 5 days a week. And they just pick positions, the first positions that come up to keep them busy. and they stay like that for years. And then years later, they're like wondering like what just happened to my career? I'm not happy. This isn't why I went into dental school. And then all those years are gone. So, Mark, please help us. How can we strategize our careers?
Well, I think it's very, very important and to appreciate the profession we've selected. Our destiny and future literally is in our own hands. So, what you have to do is think about a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Where do I want to see my career? How many days do you want to work? That's very important. Work-life balance. What kind of dentistry do you want to do? What kind of patients do you want to treat? And of course, all this will affect the final income and lifestyle that you would want. So being honest and transparent, all of us want that work environment where we enjoy the people we work with, we
Mhm.
enjoy the patients we treat, and they appreciate what we do, and to have a fair income for our sweat, blood, and tears to improve their quality of life. So I think regardless of where you are in your careers and how many years you're out, you have to sit down and look at where you are today and say, what am I doing today? And did I plan for this? Kind of to your point and to Peter Barry's point, like if I look back in time today, this is what I'm doing. Did I plan for this, or did I get here by accident, and or I'm a victim of certain circumstances that I'm doing what I'm doing for whatever reasons? And I don't think we spend enough time planning our careers out. So you should say, this is where I am today. I would like to strive and have goals that a year from now I'm doing this, and this is the type of lifestyle I have in 3 years, in 5 years, and to plan it out so that when time elapses, you can look back and say, this was a very structured, planned career path. Now, of course, we know nothing's going to go exactly as planned, but at least in the right direction. So I'm hoping that, in today's detailed career choices, that I can highlight the pros and cons of each career path.
Yeah, so let's do it. Like you did a GPR after you graduated.
Yeah.
Do you recommend GPRs?
So let's start that chronologically. So
Yes.
most of the dental students finishing 4 years of dental school, there's always potential for AEGDs or GPR, general practice residencies within hospitals or institutions. So, what's good about that is that you're in an environment that's still somewhat protected, that you will have instructors and mentors. So, you can use that opportunity to increase your clinical skill sets, because by no means out of dental school you're competent and or that fast. So you want to improve the speeds of your treatment, diagnosis, and again, the supervision and guidance is very helpful, because now you are a licensed dentist, and now you're just kind of getting the wheels under you to improve your clinical skill sets, and of course improve your treatment outcomes. And again, when you're done under a hospital or credentialed institutions, you're somewhat protected and have a lot of guidance and people around you. Just like us, when we're in private practice, you can lean towards your colleagues, you can have study clubs, but you don't have somebody that you can just lean over and say, hey, what do you think? What do you see, and what's your recommendations? Now, of course, if and when in the future and you're entertaining dental specialties, and I think all programs will see that as an asset, that you've done some kind of organized AEGD or GPR program. So they'll say, okay, you've done your dental school, you've done an AEGD or or GPR, and now you have a few years under your belt. So that's kind of a full, of course, research would add to that too. They will say you're a strong candidate to consider a dental specialty, which we'll get to later in the podcast.
Oh, that's great. I wish I did a GPR, not just for the supervision of that year, but also to improve my confidence.
Yeah,
So like
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
so it helps in your confidence and your skills. Now
Yeah.
you were associated for 13 years before you specialized. So
Uh,
tell us
so
about those
I
years.
I actually only associated a year and a half, and then
Oh,
started my own practice. So
oh,
I
I see.
Yeah, so I associated only about a year and a half, and then I just realized that it's time to move on and open my own practice. So my associateship was only about a year and a half, not a long duration. But to that point, I want to speak to that. Is again in an associateship, you usually have principal owner. You're obviously working in a team environment with assistants and front desk. So again, we should utilize that time very carefully to improve your skills in diagnosis and treatment planning to make sure your clinical efficiency is up to par. The good old days in a dental school where you have 3 hours to do a DO
Mm,
restoration doesn't exist anymore, right? So the real life dentistry is that you got to get the patient in and out of there. And of course, you have to have very predictable outcomes so that patients don't come back and retreat
mm,
and stuff like that. And I think it's important during the associateship to again look in the mirror and say, now that I've done a bit of dentistry in a broad spectrum, what are my clinical interests? What are my strengths? And of course, what are my weaknesses? It's impossible to be a super GP after 2, 3 years out of dental school. You can't be good at perio and endodontics and oral surgery and prosthetics and pediatrics and you just can't be good at everything. And some of us gravitate to certain things and some of us will move away and say, yeah, I'm not that interested in that. So again, it's okay to handpick and say, what are my strengths and weaknesses? When would I refer in cases I don't want to see and do? Which cases I think I like doing and I want to get better at? And that's very, very important. And of course, in dental school, there's little to no training on the business aspect of dentistry. There's nothing or very limited discussions on risk management. So I think again, using that time to making sure that you're trying to improve your clinical skills at the same time understand there's a business component and risk management component to that. And so for associateships, you would think about working there for a few, at least a year and think about, is this something short term and I'm going to get short term gains for myself and the principal? Or is this a long term associate position that maybe partnership is in the works, that maybe it's going to be helpful for everybody. I think you started and you alluded to this point in the beginning as well. Whatever we do, make sure you don't waste your time. So, for example,
mhm.
you don't want to be in an associateship for 5 years, 6 years. You're developing goodwill. You're developing, your work habits. And meanwhile, you might be thinking, I want a partnership on ownership. Meanwhile, the principal have have never thought of that. So, is it your goal to be a long-term associate? If that's the case, that's fine. Have good communications with your principal and be it. Or you may say, hey, let's talk. Is there an opportunity for me to become a partner or eventually transition anything out? And the main thing is to make sure your time doing an associateship is just not like, oh, great, they gave me a lot of patients. I'm billing, I'm happy. But meanwhile, it's not steps towards a certain goal, which is very, very important. And also, unfortunately, again, you alluded to this when you opened this podcast, is make sure your associateship is meaningful and really don't waste your time there, because that's very, very valuable time you won't get back. If that associateship is not working out or doesn't serve a purpose to your future goal, then you have the luxury or the flexibility to move on and try different associateships and stuff like that. So just again, be mindful and have a purpose for that associateship. What is it that you're looking to gain out of that associateship? Is it clinical competence? Is it learning some business aspects with your principal? Is it something that you're going to potentially own as a practice owner? Or again, is that a stepping stone for you for other future plans?
I like that, Mark, because associateships is more than just making an income. These
Absolutely.
dentistry is your career. This isn't, you know, a job like one of those high school jobs we have that's just about making money. This is about career. So if you're going to have fulfillment, if you want to have like a 40-year career that you're happy and proud of, then you have to have goals and you have to make sure you can reach those goals in whatever position you're in.
Yes, yes. So I think the next one, which is very, very hot topic, is this corporate dentistry, right? The
Yes.
DSOs, so dental service organizations. So I think one of the things, we have a few big ones, a bunch of small ones. So the large chains have multiple offices. So I would think there may be a benefit in geographic convenience. So if you prefer a certain lifestyle or suburb or what have you, so when you interview, you can look for opportunities in different geographies that may be best suited for you and your lifestyle. They pretty much have structured hours and do pretty much already have established office protocols and manpower. Essentially, they're looking for you to come in and produce, and you're looking to come in, produce, walk out with minimal headaches and administrative issues or staffing issues, and you're going to do the best possible dentistry for you and the patients. And that's what they're looking for you to do. So some of the pros and cons, again, those are the pros. Some of the cons is that be very, very careful if you're early in your careers, that you look at the contracts you sign very, very carefully, because some of them will have production quotas. Some of them
Yeah.
have something called clawbacks. So if you don't produce, and some of them may give you bonuses if you hit a certain threshold in production. And let's not make any mistake about this. Dental service corporations are there to make money. It's a business run,
Mhm.
usually run by accountants and they're number crunchers. So they expect you to produce. Now, there's a thin line between doing what's best in your patient's interest versus just producing for the sake of producing. And again, being around for 32 years plus in dentistry, I find that when you do what is in the patient's best interest, first and foremost, money will come after, not the other way around.
Right on.
And when you
Exactly.
have it reversed, it's not going to end well. It's not going to work well. The other caveat to be very careful is what we call restrictive covenant. So if
Mhm.
you sign a contract, what it means is they may say you cannot, when you leave this place, have a certain amount of radius where you can potentially pull the patients out. So say you work for one of the corps and you say, okay, my contract's a year or 3 years. After 3 years, I think I want to move down the street and open my own office. Well, they're very concerned that the loyalty and the goodwill of patients may follow you. So they would have a very strict restrictive covenant and they will enforce it. So again, all the concern is that please be very careful that you don't try to cheapen out and say, don't worry, I've read it, I think I understand. Get a lawyer to interpret what
Yes.
exactly it means, pay the 600 bucks, 800 bucks, and make sure you know what exactly you're signing. And I have found that a lot of these corporations are negotiable. So if you're a producer and you're a good clinician, they're dying to get good clinicians
Yeah.
that are stable. So I don't think all the contracts are written in stone, and some of them are a little bit more flexible and negotiable. So make sure you spend the time, energy, and get legal advice, and before you sign anything on the dotted line, because that's what it is. It's a contract, so that you also understand that. And again, these associate positions, as far as I know, stays as associate positions. It's
Yes.
usually not possible for you to say, "Hey, can I buy in? Can I get a piece of the pie?" Some corporations, DSOs, will allow that. Most don't. At the end of the day, they will have pretty much 51% or higher ownership because they want to direct things the way they want to
Mhm.
direct. You won't be a partner in the say in any sense to say, hey, can we hire and fire this person? Can we incorporate these things? Can we do this? You'll play a very, very minor role. Of course, some corporates are very friendly to that and say, hey, we want to hear what you have to say. But in terms of quote unquote ownership, I think it's very limited. But everything is negotiable. So I think
I agree.
the take home is, you know, negotiate very carefully, make sure you know what you signed, and make sure you know what you got yourself involved with. And if it's a term position, make sure you understand what is the restrictive covenant, that you're not
Hmm.
bounced like, 10, 20, 30 kilometers away and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
may or may not be feasible depending where you are geographically.
Yeah. Great advice to get the contract reviewed by a dental lawyer. It's just a
Oh,
few, about
absolutely.
$600, and it'll save you tons of headaches and thousands of dollars later.
Oh, absolutely. This is not something where you want to save a few bucks because
Yeah.
none of us are lawyers, and you know we need help, and don't cheap out, because sometimes we say, oh, that's gonna cost us $800, $1,000. But exactly to your point, if you need to pull out on the contract, you need to know what exactly you signed. Don't just
Yeah.
read it over and say, I think I understand. Have a lawyer that's in your corner, interpret the terms and conditions and the wording, and so that you understand what exactly you just signed on for.
Yes. Now, Mark, how about specialization? You went from being a practice owner to a specialist. Why did you make that decision?
So, when even in dental school, I had wanted to specialize. So it wasn't one of those things where I did 13 years of GP practice and I said, oh, you know what? It hit me. I woke up one morning and said, oh, general dentistry is not for me. So for me personally, it was always in my blood. So in third year, dental school, I went to an oral surgery internship during the summer at Parkland in Dallas. So I was gearing a little bit towards oral surgery, even in dental school. So some of the dental students, when they come out, they kind of already have a certain feeling for certain specialties. And
Hmm.
maybe sometimes it is a later thing. You do some dentistry for 3 years, 4 years, and you realize, hey, you know what? I like orthodontics. Hey, I like perio. I like endo. I like prosto. I know I like oral surgery. I like pediatrics or something like that. So sometimes you're out a bit. You kind of sampled everything, and then you'll gravitate towards specialty. So this is a personal experience and bias, being on both sides, 13 years as GP and 16 years as a prosthodontist. I would seriously encourage the new dentists, which is, your audience, to really consider specializing within 3 to 5 years, 6 years of getting out of dental school. So again, the pure numbers, if I did a procedure and a GP did a procedure, and right off the bat, our billing based on the fee guide is 20-25% more, and you have the rest of your career to do that, it's
Yeah.
it's a difference in billings, right? So if you did
Mhm.
a crown, I did a crown, and I'm sure if you and I send it to good lab, pretty much everything looks, it's gonna be very acceptable. But for every procedure I touch a patient, I get to bill 20-25% more.
Mhm.
So exponentially, yeah, you're going back to school for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, but you'll catch that up like in no time. And the other thing is, if you want to be a faculty member or part time faculty or full time, specialties will have some opportunities. If you want to be affiliated with hospitals, or like you mentioned, thank you for Tide, to run private training, continuing education institute, you will need that. You obviously can lead some study clubs and with your referrals, referring GPs. And the honest truth is, when you specialize, you only do certain procedures. So you're bound to get good at it because that's all you do.
Yes.
So, I've stopped doing endo a long, long time ago, and I thought I was pretty good as a GP. But right now, I just won't do that, and certain procedures, when you're just only honing in on certain procedures, you're bound to get good at it. And so you become uh, better predictability for outcomes. You're very comfortable in what you know. Again, it doesn't matter which specialty. That's all you hone in on. So my kind of recommendations for the new dentists, if they're out 1, 2, 3 years, you kind of experience what's out there. That you should think about, is specialty something that I'm interested in? And of course, if there's a certain specialty or a certain dentistry component that's kind of calling for you, then you should kind of, listen to your gut instinct and say, hey, don't do what I do. Don't wait 13 years before you wake up and say, I got to get involved. So that's again one of my regrets, that I didn't get into a specialty earlier. Having said that, the flip side, some people ask me why 13 years, is because at that time family was a priority. So I had kids, and life was good, and we're paying off bills, loans, we're investing well, we're traveling well. So now it's a big commitment to specialize.
Mm.
And so again, that's why I say earlier. So maybe you're early in your career, maybe early in the family development and opportunities. Don't wait too much longer, because obviously on the back end, you're investing 3 years of your life, so you want to make sure you have enough years to practice to kind of get the rewards, if you will, of become a specialist. So this is not for everybody. It's for certain people that are thinking about it. This, I would say, don't wait too long. 3 to 5 years. Make a commitment. Make a direct decision to apply or not apply. And I think any of your audience that listen to this podcast, I think it's more of a one-to-one and one-on-one discussion, because everybody
Mhm.
are doing things for different reasons. So if anybody wants to sit down with me or just chat, what are the different specialties? What's calling you out? And why would I specialize? What are the pros and cons? I can certainly share some thoughts on that to your audience that are interested.
That's so kind of you, Mark. I wish I met you 20 years ago because I wish I specialized.
What
So
would you
now
specialize in? What's your interest?
pediatrics. So now, like I'm a general dentist, but I work in a pediatric clinic.
Oh,
So
okay.
like I'm doing the same work as a pediatric dentist, but like you said, I'm not getting paid as much. And also I would be faster, I'd be more skilled if I did that specialty training. And I got married right before I graduated, had kids right after. So like you said with family, once I had kids, I'm like, okay, well, I can't go back to school now. So yeah, I would, you know, echo what you said, like specialize early in your career, like before the kids come, because then you can invest in your education and then invest in your family, and then you're set because it's very hard to go back to school and take that time away from your family and that income away from your family once your family's
Oh yeah.
ready.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Before I specialized, so in my case, it took 13 years, but much before that, we were considering. Back then, I was married, so we were considering the opportunities on the options. And my accountant sat with me and said, "Mark, for 3 years, you won't be producing as much. For 3 years, you won't be paying off loans. For 3 years, you won't be making investments. So it's a setback." And he would just crunch numbers as, do you know and anticipate how much, in terms of once you graduate, how long will it take for you to recap, that 3 years? And I know the numbers very, very well. Yes, it took 3 years. Certainly, you're not going to produce the same amount because you're in full time school, but most programs allow you to work on weekends. They're obviously
Mhm.
not Monday to Friday. So you do a little bit of work on Saturdays, if you will, and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say it's a zero income, but there's obviously a serious hit. But
Yes.
the recuperation or rebound was, to me, actually very, very quick. Within a
Good.
year or two, all the debts were paid and everything
Wow.
but again, to each is very different, right? So I think if you're only crunching numbers, you got to play the long game, right? You're saying
Yes.
option A, I stay like this for the rest of my career as GP. Option
Yes.
B, I take one step back, but three steps forwards. And then
Yeah.
for the rest of your career, there's a difference. And that's the
Yeah. Sure.
statistics. You can run the numbers, and any spreadsheet will tell you what's, what the numbers run. But I think more importantly is, again, we go through life once, and we want to make sure we're doing something that we won't have any regrets. So
Yeah.
if this is the time, I just encourage everyone to think seriously, and then if that is in your cards, again, don't just wait, and make a move and start applying and see if that's what's right for you.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. In the last 5 minutes, let's talk about practice ownership. Buying an existing practice versus startup.
Yeah. So if you're ready to invest in ownership, again, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of deals go perfectly well, and I've seen and heard a lot of my friends, associates, and colleagues, it didn't go so well. So if you're going to buy an existing practice, of course, there's an appraisal that's pretty recent, but I urge people to be very careful of buying things off a piece of paper. I would encourage an opportunity to work in there as an associate for a period of time, 6 months, a year. Number one, you'll know the culture of the practice, and that you and I got to know every practice is very, very different, right?
Mhm.
So you'll know the culture of the practice, culture of the patients, the staff, and the team members you'll be working with, and they know you. Very importantly, they know you. So when you make that serious investment, you know what you're getting. All
Mhm.
too often, we see numbers that are crunched by appraisals. You walk in, you pay a ton of money, and now things can fall apart very quickly. You don't like the staff doesn't like you, the patients
Yeah.
are not what you thought they were, and you're just
Mhm.
going by numbers. So it's very, very risky to buy something that you don't really know what you're getting yourself involved based on numbers, and the numbers may look attractive, but once you're in there it can very quickly either deteriorate or exponentially go the positive way. So if you're going to buy a practice, I would say try to associate there for a period of time, and once you're there for 3 months, 6 months, you'll know this is it. I want to make a run for the purchase of this, or very quickly say, thank goodness I didn't dump a few $1 million in this, because now I am stuck here for a long time until someone buys me out. So
Yes.
that's kind of my advice. You can certainly open your own. There's some benefits. You can pick the geography, you can pick the type of practice you want. You can pick, in your own mind, what is a dream practice. But of course, now you're taking on a lot of debt up front without a lot of patience. So, you got to have to work pretty hard in building a pretty good base within a year or two. Again, depending on your geography, right? If you're downtown Toronto, you have competition left, right, and center. Maybe if you're outskirt a little bit more in the suburb area, you have a new residential development. It might not take you much. You open a practice, and within a year or two, I've heard of getting 1,000, 2,000 patients very quickly and building up the hygiene. So of course you got to be very strategic and be mindful of the business aspects. Where are you? What size? Who's around you? Some of the competition and stuff like that. So there's pros and cons to everything. Now, if you are of thinking of ownership of a practice, what I strongly encourage, which I'll show you the story, is that you end up owning the premise that you have and not leasing. So the story
Mhm.
goes like this. My mother and father are doctors from Hong Kong, but when they immigrated here, they were not doctors. Out of the blue, my mother says, if you're gonna have an office, make sure you own the property. And she's not a business person by any stretch
Yeah.
of the imagination. And I said, all my friends are running an hour or two outside of Toronto, and because they're afraid there's just too saturated and competition. And then
Mhm.
I guess to her wisdom now, she said, Mark, when you're good, you don't have to worry about competition. She goes, you just plant yourself where you want to be, just do the best you can and be the best person you can and be real to the patients, and patients will find you. So you don't have to worry about competition. And of course, she says, own something so you're not paying landlords for their mortgage and stuff. So this is like first 2 years out of the dental school when I was associating, and by the grace of God and things worked out that I was driving by. I was playing ball hockey with a friend of mine, and then we're driving by, and then I missed this light. He went through the green light. I missed it, so I was in a red light, and something called me back and says, "Hey, there's a house there that's for open house." So something made me turn around. I go, "Okay, I'm gonna be late for lunch anyway, so let him go. I'm gonna turn around, just take a look." So next thing you know, within a year or two, I bought the property here at 88 Finch East, and then a year, 6 months later, I built a practice. And I think again, in comparison to all my colleagues, they all pound their heads and say, if I go and calculate how much I paid in lease, that over the years, I should have bought a property 10 times over, and I have an investment. So I,
Yeah.
the wisdom and what my mother said is comes to fruition, at the back end. You got to listen to your parents. Now, So I'm so thankful I made that investment. I'm so thankful, there's a property that I can own. So if and when people are looking at ownerships, they may or may not be financially be ready. But I think they should think about that aspect and don't just go into a lease because everyone is doing a lease. But think about it, a lease means your landlord is getting paid and you're just
Yeah.
renting something and you'll never own it. And if you go to own it, it'll cost you a lot of money to move things and move patients. So that
Mm.
aspect, I would think about that as part of the component that one day you want to own the property you're on, and that potentially is a good investment in real estate.
Your mom is so wise.
Yeah, I
Forget
didn't
about,
know. I didn't know. I was a bad boy. I never listened to my mother, but thank goodness that aspect I
that.
listened. And
I know you should give out your mom's phone number. We can ask her for advice.
yeah, unfortunately, my mom passed a couple of years ago.
Oh,
But it's
sorry
like
to
one of
hear.
those things, right? You never listen to your parents because, whatever, what do you know, mom? You don't know anything about the
Yes.
industry. You don't know about business and stuff. But again, I think that aspect just worked out. And, I was thinking the first thing she said, which hit home was, again, this is Young and Finch, very mature
Yeah.
geography. And she goes, you don't need to go out to an hour out, an hour and a half out, 2 hours out. And her point was, okay, say you drive out two
Yeah.
hour in a city, there's no dentist. There's like 20,000 population. And you say, okay, this is the place I'm going to put my flag down. I'm going to open a practice. She goes, what is to stop another practice opening down the street from you? And what is to
Exactly.
stop now a DSO opening now down the street
Yes.
from you? So her point was well taken, is to plant your feet, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, and just improve. Because once you're at that certain level, when you have the confidence and there will be a clientele and patient base that will search you out. And that's not anything different in merchandise, right? There's,
True.
there are the brand names for purses, for cars, for vacation spots, for everything. So there will be a clientele that will gravitate to what you're offering. Just you got to position yourself so that you're ready to, to live up to those expectations, if you will.
That is fantastic, Mark. This has been a fantastic episode. I would suggest to all the listeners, like, go home tonight, open up your journal, and write down like what your goals are 1 year, 2 year, 5 years down the line, like what your perfect day looks like. What procedures do you like doing? What population do you like working with? What type of environment do you like working with? And then look at your current situation and say, okay, is there a match here? Because if there isn't, then you have to make some decisions so that you can get that perfect day, perfect practice, perfect career. And it means making a lot of changes. I made a lot of changes in my career, so did you.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
make some tough decisions,
Well,
leaving your,
again, I
you
just
know,
want to highlight that again, we have to appreciate that we have that option and ability. So I
mhm,
play tennis with three of my colleagues at least twice a week, and they're all in medicine. So one internal medicine, they're both specialists and stuff like that. They actually don't have a choice. They got to go to the hospital.
yeah,
They have to work with the people they work with. They have to put requests in when they want to take a vacation to make sure someone is doing the calls and stuff. So when I play tennis with them, I go, oh, you know what? I'm going to go on a vacation. I'm taking 2 weeks off. Oh, you know what? I'm going to hire certain staff that have have that kind of culture that works with us. And I want to go in and be happy with the people I'm working with. And that's a privilege and luxury, so we
yeah.
should exercise and appreciate it. But when you don't, and you kind of, again, unfortunately, you're a victim to the circumstances, that's not good. So now we understand we have that option to move the needle, and what we want is exactly what you said. You got to write things down. You got to identify some of the barriers. Why aren't you there yet? And you got to
Mhm.
move the needle and move the ship towards that, so that hopefully a year, 3 or 5, you go, I'm here because it was structured and planned. You're not going to be bang on perfect, but
Mhm.
certainly, you're in the right direction. So I think that's very critical for new grads.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark, for sharing your wisdom, sharing your career and your strategies with us. How can the audience reach you?
I only have two contacts. One is my personal cell, and the other is the one and only email I have at UToronto. So I'm happy to. I've provided that, so I'm happy to share that. You can just circulate it, so they
Oh,
can
good.
call me, text me, and email me. Obviously, the only thing is I give a lot of presentations. We give out the same contact, so when they contact me, all I ask is that they reference things so I know who I'm talking to. So they say,
Okay.
"Hey, we saw the podcast." And this is my name. These are my questions. Can we address it? So certainly they can call, they can text, they can email, and
Okay.
usually within a couple of weeks, I will answer back one way or the other, and be happy to chat with them one on one.
Thank you, Mark. I'll share your contact information in the show notes. So this has been fantastic. I'm looking forward to our next episode together where we're going to be talking about choosing continuing education courses wisely. That's also very important. It's all
Yes,
about strategy, strategy with everything. If that's the
yes.
take.
Well, the take home in prosthodontics is planning, right? We're big on
Yes,
planning, right?
exactly.
So that's just ingrained in our genetics and my genetics that I plan things out. And so even like a vacation, right? I like to plan things. I'm not one of those goes, okay, let's just get a backpack and go figure things out. That would freak me out. Like I need to know which day, which hotel, which flight, what are my options? Why would I pick that? Because again, unfortunately, at my age, time is ticking, right? And
Yeah.
so we want to make sure that when you're on vacation, for example, I've done my due diligence, I'm spending x amount of time, days there, and I want to make sure everything's planned out. But again, unfortunately, we scroll, we look at, we goof around with social media, we
Yeah.
waste a lot of time watching Netflix, watching
Yeah.
certain things. But when it comes to me, a very critical decision, your career path that will have
Mhm.
direct impact on your lifestyle, on your work-life balance, on your income, we don't
Yes.
sit down to plan it. We just say, okay, let's wing it and see what happens, which is kind of
You're
strange.
so right.
So we got to
Yeah.
sit down, and hopefully this podcast, if anything, stimulates the audience to say, hey, that's on a Sunday morning when, I'm quiet, I'm relaxed, and I'm in a state of mind. Let's do exactly what you said. Get a journal out and write things down and say, where am I? Where do I want to be? What are some of the obstacles? And what are the strategies to move towards some of those goals?
That's great. Treatment plan your career. We're going
Yes,
to end with that.
yes,
That is what you should do.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you to everyone who's listening. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Thank you all.
Thank you for listening to the New Dentist Study Club podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, watch us on YouTube, share and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at New Dentist Study Club.